Welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Each week, we bring you discussions with educators on how they use blended, self-paced, and mastery-based learning to better serve their students. We believe teachers learn best from each other, so this is our way of lifting up the voices of leaders and innovators in our community. This is the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. My name is Tony Rose Deanna, and they, them pronouns, a designated hype person here at MCP, and I am joined by an instructional coach from Alabama, Jamie Nutter. Welcome, Jamie.
Hello, how are you guys?
So happy that you are here and that you said yes to the podcast. It's always such a joy being in the same space as you. I know you and I have a good time together when I'm over there at Hoover. So before we get started, what is bringing you joy currently?
Oh, sunshine and warmer weather here. So it is so nice in the South to finally have some warm weather and to see a little sun peeking out from behind the clouds.
Yes. Has it been pretty cold, Jamie? I haven't been in the States, so I'm not quite sure.
It has been. We've had some very unusual weather in the South. Even South Alabama just got up to 11 inches of snow, which we don't ever see. So that's the second time it has snowed in Alabama in January. So that kind of weather is very unusual, but I'm happy to send all of that weather back up north to everyone and get our little warm skies back down here.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I did see news about snow in the South. So that's wild. 11 inches in South Alabama.
Yes, my mom, she got almost 7 inches. So that was even wild. But we were all proud to see it melt and go away.
Right? Like one of the joys of being in the South is that we don't have to deal with snow. So
Exactly.
Yeah, I just recently got back and the sun has been really just kind of bringing so much joy to me. It's just really beautiful being outside and the sun is beaming and it's like 50, 60 degrees on my walk. So that's been really nice. I do hear that we have some snow coming in soon again, which I'm like, what is this? This is wild.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear you say that. We're just going to keep going on.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for entertaining my question. Well, tell us more about who you are and how you started your MCP journey, Jamie.
So I am a technology instructional coach in Hoover City Schools. And several years ago, I would say about 4.5 years ago, a team member, Cameron McKinley, she brought the idea of the Modern Classrooms Project to the technology team. She introduced it, went over it, fell in love with what she had to say, contacted Matthew, and he quickly scheduled a meeting with our team. And we jumped on board, and I am one of the biggest fans of the Modern Classroom Project, and I love sharing with other teachers in my district, in my state, and all around the nation.
Yeah, and something that I've realized too when I've come and visited Hoover City is that there's just an alignment with what you all want the model to look like, right? And it wasn't just kind of like a top to bottom. You all have really created this collaborative space for teachers to try out different strategies that could potentially work in the classroom, right? And so I just really love how you and the other technology instructional coaches have been able to work together. And I know one of the things too, and I can't remember who it was, maybe it was, you said Taylor, right? Cameron, sorry. So I don't know if it was Cameron, but I know that when I was talking to one of the instructional coaches, they had said that all of the instructional coaches actually went through our course before really opening it up for the teachers because they knew the importance of knowing what they're asking educators to do. And so I was like, oh, that's so lovely. That's so great. Can you tell us a little bit more about that thought process of like, why was it vital, or really why did y'all prioritize that as opposed to just like, hey, here's this cool thing, go through it and we can go through it together?
Absolutely. Well, personally, I would never ask someone to do something that I'm not willing to do myself in any aspect of life. So, but to learn and to grow, we're all teachers. We all came from the classroom at one point in time. And so to go through that process and see truly how amazing it was, but also understanding that this is nothing that educators have not already been doing. It's just take away the acronym of the program or the name of it and look at it, and you can totally see that this is something that we've been doing since way back when. One of the biggest things that I think is really important that helped me go through the program is to really encourage teachers not to change anything that they're already doing, not to lose their personality in teaching, not to lose what makes them Miss Nutter. So really understanding it's okay, do what you've already been doing, but here is the process to enhance what you're already doing. And I think that that was the part that I became really acclimated with, for me to take back to the teachers and say, wait, don't change anything that you're doing, but here's a process to help better deliver that content so that we are meeting every single student that we touch every day.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Thank you for naming the fact that you are an instructional coach, right? And saying that I have to do the things that I'm asking my teachers to do, right? And I think that is really such an important thing. And that's something that I tell educators all the time too, of like, if you're going to create tasks for students, also make sure that you do those tasks. So you know exactly what you're asking for, and you can kind of predict, right, what the challenges would be. So I really love that. So thank you for naming that. I think that's such an important trait as well as leaders, so that we know like, hey, I've gone through it. I know how to make it work in my head, and I'm pretty sure I can help you make it make sense in your head as well, right? And so, and again, just another reminder too that you said, you know, this is something that we've been doing all along, right? This is something, it's not necessarily breaking everything that you know and starting from ground zero, right? I think sometimes when educators, I know I was definitely one of them, right? When we're told to do something, it's like, no, but now you're asking me to get rid of all of these things. And it's like, no. Exactly what you said, Jamie. It's enhancing what we're already doing in the classroom. And I think the reminder too of like, let your personality shine, and also figure out what you do that works really well for you as an educator, because a lot of the times we're always thinking about students, right? I'm like, no. You're delivering this lesson. So what's going to work for you in your head? And then let's figure that out to enhance it so that it is better accessible for students, right? So that they can continue learning how to be accountable for their learning, as well as, being active learners, right? It's all a journey for everyone. And so we don't ever want to just give up our own sense of like values and beliefs just because we're trying something different. So thank you for that reminder.
Absolutely. I do love, and another thing that I love about it is going in and working with these educators and not knowing the answers, not knowing every single answer to everything that they ask, because that shows them that it's okay not to know everything. Let's work together to find out a solution and build what you want together. So learning to make mistakes, fix those mistakes, just as our students are going to do, and not to be scared to do those things. All those things are just so important in our everyday life to keep growing and to keep learning together.
Right, life skills.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what we want to help our students with, right? All of the skills. Of course, content is important. Of course, yes. And there are also life skills that we want our students to take away as well. And so it seems like you're doing a lot of modeling for your teachers, which is really good. So then it gives them permission to also make mistakes, to also embrace the fact that they don't know all the answers. There's way too many things happening in this world for us to know every single thing. Yeah. So it's really nice to be vulnerable and to embrace the fact that we just don't know, right? And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And it only comes up when someone asks the question, right? And right. And I don't think that it looks bad on the leader as well, right? Just because you don't know something, it's more so like, oh, okay, let's figure this out together. And there's that collaboration piece again that's happening.
Yes.
Okay. So you talked a little bit more about how, you worked with the other instructional coaches. How many are there in your city, in your district? And then how does that look like when you're supporting educators and implementing the model? Do y'all do a reach out and say like, hey, any teachers who are interested in implementing this model, or it's not mandated, right? It's kind of an optional thing?
Yes, it's totally optional. So in the beginning, well, first of all, there's one coach. We have two high schools. There's one coach at each high school, and there's one coach at each middle school. And then there are shared coaches within the 11 elementary schools. So there's 9 of us all together. When we first started this, we went out and sent out flyers, had team meetings with our buildings that we are the technology coaches in. We would go into those grade level meetings, introduce what it was, talk a little bit about it, introduce it to the admins of the school, not pushing anything, but just informing everyone. And then we would send out emails offering them to go through the program. And 1 or 2 would go through the program. And that is the people that you really want to highlight, showcase the great things that are going on in there. We would never force anyone to do anything. But as just a natural human being, when you see something great happening, you want to jump on board with that. And so that is how we have continued to build this program within Hoover City Schools. Last year was our first year that now we're able to bring people in from the state to see the great things that are going on. So now we're not only building within our district and within our schools, but we are now trying to build that within our state. So those are just small things, talking about it, showcasing the teachers that have jumped on board, gone through the program, and keep working with others that say, well, I saw this lesson that she created. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? And then that gives me the opportunity to say, yes, the next one's coming available, the cohort, you can jump in this one, go through the program, and we're going to give you a stipend to go through it, and you're going to learn so much more. And guess what? I'm going to hold your hand and walk you through every step of the way. I have also noticed that another great thing is going to the admins of your building and saying, hey, do you have any professional development money that we can set aside for these teachers that are going through the process of MCP and plan for a day while they're at school? Hire a sub. Let those teachers record those videos at school. That way they're not having to work outside their school hours. They've got children, families at home, and this just gives them another way to really dive deep in, have one of the coaches there with them if they have any questions to help them plan.
Oh, yes. I mean, these are all really great ideas, right? And again, also great reminders. And so one of the things too is like really prioritizing planning it out so that it actually happens, right? And so, when you first said there's 9 of us all together, I'm like, oh my goodness. And you all were on board with the Modern Classrooms project, because I have 6 other siblings and we rarely agree on one thing. So how did that conversation happen?
Well, first of all, it's almost kind of like we're just a family. So this team that we all have the same end goal, and our end goal is truly our students and teachers. So as long as you have that common goal and everybody is on the same page, it is so easy to set the bar high, dream big, and everyone go out and chase that dream and achieve that dream in your own unique way. And that is what we do every day. So I love this team. I could not be more thankful for this team. And it's truly, and I know everyone's going to be so jealous, but I work with the dream team. And so I know that not everybody has that experience, but in Hoover, the technology team is the dream team.
And y'all are literally a good time.
We love to have a good time.
I know we just do a lot of like laughing, and also hearing y'all have conversations with educators that you work with. It's also very empowering, right? It's there's a lot of grace that comes to it. And there's also a lot of just it's very caring, because I know that we visited I think it was a fourth grade teacher, right, who just was interested in implementing, but really had no idea how, right? And it wasn't, you all didn't pressure her into doing anything. It's just like, you know what are you most comfortable with, right? What do you want to start off with? And then for her to be able to showcase like the pacing tracker that she created, right? And the pieces that the students made so that they can literally move their pieces from one lesson to another. And you were just like, there was just a lot of encouragement, a lot of like, oh, that's a really great start. Maybe think about it this way, or like, let me know how it goes, because your classroom is really different than another classroom. So maybe your students may engage with it in a different way, but she really made it work, and you were there just cheering her on. And so the confidence builds up in the educator to try something different, right? And like you said, it's just such a supportive group of folks that I'm like, oh, this is so dope. I also want to work for Hoover City.
Yes, love this team. One of the way that I think about our team, and even as a technology integration coach, is an AI, a real live AI. We're there to give you those ideas, and whatever you do with those ideas is totally up to you. It's so easy with anyone to sit down and let's just talk something out. For example, the STEAM teacher that will soon be highlighted in the next visit when you guys come, she taught fourth grade. And so it was really hard for her to go from all the fourth grade units and now into her STEAM class and think, how am I going to use this model? How am I going to use this with my students? And that is when we sat down and I said, you do not have to have a curriculum. You do not have to have anything laid out. So let's go back to last year, and what did you do for the 4 weeks in September? Let's look at that. What did you do week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4? And what's very unique about her situation is that she only meets with one class one time a week. So she sees this one class 4 times in a month. And she was like, well, let's go back and look. I said, what was the end goal? All you need is an end goal. So think about, what is it that you wanted them to master? And then let's go back and say, how can we build these 4 things each week to make a unit? And so she did. And now to walk in her room, in her STEAM class, she has lockers over on the side, and she put her students into groups, and they created their own magnets with whatever emoji or character or picture they wanted. So now they just move their magnet from locker to locker each week so they remember where they are. So just having that AI conversation to spark ideas, to give her a starting point, this teacher already is most amazing. Ms. Barker is a phenomenal teacher. So when you get teachers like that listen to your ideas and even help you think of things to even spark more ideas, those are just great educators that you truly know that are there for the students.
I mean, it's the receptiveness of it all, right? Like being receptive. And then also meeting a challenge of like, oh man, I only see students once a week. So then how do I create this space that's meaningful and intentional for students, and also enhancing the skills, right? Things that I heard from you really is that, first of all, I really love this whole concept of real live AI, right? These in-person conversations that are really important that AI cannot take away, right? So AI is booming. Yes, AI is like everywhere. However, it cannot replace the in-person interactions that we have with folks. And so I really love you stating this. And then I also hear that there's autonomy to be creative, right? There's no wrong answer. It's just like, hey, let's brainstorm all the things that we want for this space to look like, right? And like you said, is the end goal. So backwards planning. And I think with this model, you can't get away from backwards planning. You really, really have to, right? Because I know when I was in the classroom, I said I was backwards planning. I was not until I implemented this model. And I was like, oh, I've been doing it wrong all this time. So I think that's, again, like a really beautiful part of the model too, is that no, you really have to backwards plan, and you need to know what that looks like for you to be able to create a space that is self-pacing, that is blended, that is mastery based, right? So I really like the update. Thank you. Cause that was when was that, Jamie, that I went over there and she just like started implementing? That was last school year. Yeah. Or last semester.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's so great that now we're going to be highlighting her, and you both kind of found the pathway for it, which is really, really dope. And I also just really want to highlight the Hoover City being a demonstration site for MCP, right? Because y'all have been crushing it so well, and there's different grade levels, different content, different and I think one of the people that went through your program is a librarian, right?
Yes, Jennifer Northrup. She's over in elementary. Yes.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to her because I want to see how she utilizes this model. And so y'all really just expanded it, not just for the folks who are teaching content, right? But also like librarians. I think there was also a guidance counselor that may have gone through it. Am I making that up?
I am not familiar with any, but the district is so large, I'm not sure if there was one or not, but there may be.
Yeah. So it was just like one of those things where I am so curious to see how it looks. I'm curious to see what parts of the model they're utilizing and how it's enhanced their communication and their planning, and just like how they navigate the day-to-day schedule. So yeah, I mean, again, Hoover City, y'all, if you're in Alabama, go check them out. It is amazing. It's really great work. Yes. And they're so welcoming too. They're like, yeah, definitely check us out, look at how the process or how this is being implemented. So I really, really love that. And, I'm in Georgia now, so I'm excited to just be like, oh, I'm only 2.5 hours away. I'll come.
I think some of you guys are coming back in either March or April. So we're excited about that visit.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So what I'm hearing now too, Jamie, is that the relationship building between instructional coaches and educators have increased like in a deeper level, right? Would you say that being able to support teachers in this model has enhanced your ability to have a deeper relationship with the teachers that you work with?
Absolutely. I don't think that in any business, whether you're an educator or in a different profession, it all begins, in my opinion, with a relationship. You can't just walk into a business or a school or to sell a product and not have some kind of relationship with someone. I could walk in and tell you something and you not know me, and you're probably going to put it down and walk out the door. But if I come in and truly interested in you personally, professionally, and learn all about you and your students, then you're going to get farther. You're going to create those small conversations, and then those small conversations spark into creative ideas and big thinking. And I think that just a relationship is going to take you so much farther than anything else in any profession that you're in. And even with your students as a teacher, you have to build that relationship with your students for them to, number one, trust you, for them to listen to you, for them to, understand what's the expectations of what's going on in your classroom. So whether you are 3 years old coming into preschool or my old, it all starts out with those personal relationships that we all create.
I really love how old you are, Jamie. That was beautiful. And this also brings up the concept of, wanting to serve the whole child, right? The whole being. And I think what I wanted to highlight too is that you are also serving the whole human being as an educator, right? Of, like you said, knowing them personally and professionally, because it's kind of hard to separate those two, right? Because we do spend a lot of time and energy at work. And so for us to just always talk about professional, I mean, that's fine. And I think, like you said, it's so much more meaningful when you know just bits and pieces about a human being, just them being human and not what they're capable of doing, right? So
absolutely.
again, the whole modeling piece on your part, your instructional coach team as well. It's just such a beautiful thing to witness as someone, as an outsider, just like looking in, right? So thank you for that work, and thank you for empowering and supporting our educators and making them feel good about what they're doing. I think that's really important.
Well, we thank you guys for bringing this program to us and giving us the ability to learn from it and grow each day.
Yes, and Matt is the best. I love Matt's energy so much. So I'm so glad that y'all are able to, connect and collaborate and work together and all of that.
Hey there, listeners. This is Zach. I've got some reminders for you. You can join Arpan Chasky, Katie Fatiga, and Lindsay Anderson, DMCEs, for a live webinar on Tuesday, February 18th at 6 p.m. Eastern, where they'll share their expertise in transforming a social studies classroom into a dynamic, personalized learning environment. For school and district leaders, join MCP co-founder and chief product officer Rob Barnett, City Year co-founder Michael Brown, former district superintendent and state education commissioner Deborah Gist, and Brian Pick of Schusterman Family Philanthropies to learn why traditional methods of instruction fail to meet so many learners' needs, how teachers around the world are using research-backed teaching practices to keep each of their students appropriately challenged and appropriately supported every day, and what you can do to support student-centered teaching and learning in your own work. And that webinar is on Wednesday, February 19th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Our fall book club is back. It was so popular that we're bringing it back this spring. We're reading Rob Barnett's Meet Every Learner's Needs together as a community, and our first session is on redesigning lessons on Wednesday, February 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern. We are partnering with Cami, ScreenPal, Screencastify, and Ed Puzzle. We'd love to have you. Finally, we have a booth at the Northern Kentucky Cooperative for Educational Services, NKCES, Resource Fair on February 21st. So if you're attending, be sure to check us out. And that was a lot of announcements, but you can find all that information down in the show notes, so be sure to check there if any of these interest you. Let's get back into it now with Tony Rose and Jamie.
Okay, so, we've implemented this model for a couple of semesters now at Hoover City, right? What are 2 to 3 highlights so far that you've noticed since then?
One highlight that I have noticed is, and I'm just going to share a quick story about a first grade classroom. I had a teacher that came to me that said, what can we do? What can I do with my first graders that is really going to help them in writing? And so I noticed then she'd already implemented in math. And so now she's starting to see other areas that she could grow into. And so we sat down and we brainstormed together. And I said, I love how now you're branching out to writing, because a lot of people say, well, how do you do this? So we sat down, we planned, and I said, let's not get rid of the pre-test and post-test. Let's give them a pre-writing assessment. Let's see what these first graders can do. And then she created her unit with that end goal in mind, and then had their post-writing. And at the very end, she let the students, these first graders, compare their pre and post-writing. And they were even amazed at their own self. And it was amazing to see, just sitting down and having those things that we were already doing. And the kids were we had a celebration for those kids. The kids celebrated their own growth. So I think that was definitely a highlight that I will never forget going into this.
I mean, it's such a great way for students to see their growth, right? Because we talk about it, we look at numbers, but sometimes all of those just kind of go over our students' head, right? And so to see, hey, here's your pre-test, and then here's your post-test, look at the difference, look at the growth. And I love that so much. That's such a great idea, Jamie. And now I'm thinking, when I implemented this model with my 6th graders, we definitely, again, my students grew as like improved dramatically with their writing skills because of this model, right? But they did a pre-writing, right? But what they were doing was that I didn't get to save that pre-test on their essay because that was the same document that they were working on the entire unit. So because I wanted them to see that like, hey, you wrote your first draft, but your first draft is not the best draft. So let's continue to revise. So like really being intentional with the time and going back into that same writing piece so that my students can see, oh, it takes multiple iterations to get my piece of writing where it needs to be. And I wish I would have done that whole thing of like, here's the pre-test, here's the post-test, look at how much you've grown. Because again, I think that's just something that students can understand and see, as opposed to just telling them like, oh, you got an A or you got a 4 on this. So
Exactly.
in first grade as well, that's beautiful.
And you probably I shouldn't use the word test because no one likes a test. Let's just be honest. When you say test, you tense up, you freeze up, and you're like, oh my gosh, somebody's judging me on something. I'm going to end with a sad face or a happy face or a red mark. Get rid of the word test. But just to take that, and there's no failure whatsoever on that first draft, that you just take it and you put it away until the very, very end. And then that is when you get to celebrate yourself. I mean, who doesn't like to celebrate themselves when you have a huge win? So that was what was absolutely probably the biggest highlight that I've had, was seeing just the excitement of what those kids had learned. They were so proud of themselves.
Yeah, and that's first grade and writing, right? Like writing is hard for a lot of people. And so to see young learners like that acknowledge and then celebrate their growth, that is so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but I really struggled with saying like pre-test because I also hate that word, but I couldn't come up with another word. I was like, what is it? How do we, what do we call it? Show your knowledge.
I mean, come on, just get rid of all those words.
Yeah, because the testing anxiety is so real, especially when I mean, like, even as young as first graders, right? They know test means the connotation for the word test is just really negative. So thank you for that reminder. And I got to figure out another word for it. Pre-task.
Yeah. Let's go pre and post. That's it.
Yes. Easy peasy.
Post learning.
Oh, there you go. I like that one. That one is so much better. And I mean, like you said too, right? There's no, it's not bad if you make mistakes. It's not bad if you started out not knowing, right? It just is. It's just the journey. And so yes, to first grade, can you imagine them like continue to move up in the different grades and just realizing like, oh, my first draft is not going to be the best, but then seeing the growth is going to be so exciting. And then I hope that they get to celebrate that every single time, because
Collins is over at Bluff Park. She is truly an amazing educator. She is our district elementary teacher of the year this year. So she is rocking it with her kiddos over in first grade. I'm so proud of her as an educator and just a sweet person as you'll ever meet.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Congratulations to her. That's so dope. Shout out. Yes. Okay. So now I guess I'm still smiling because that's such an amazing story. So now I think I'm curious, right? You just said that you had like grade level meetings, right? Or just really professional learning communities as well with your teachers. How often do teachers who are implementing the model and they're implementing it well, do they lead these sessions to just kind of, like you said, highlight, showcase the things that they're doing in the classroom? How do you create space for that? How do you schedule that in? And how do you approach the teachers to say like, hey, I'd love for you to do A, B, C, D?
The teachers kind of take that on themselves. I'll use Meredith again as an example. She is going through, I think she went back to school to get another degree. And she came to me and she said, what is one thing, I have to do a project, what is one thing I could have at school and showcase? And I said, oh, MCP by far. Your colleagues would love your knowledge. your colleagues would love to see the examples that you have done. And so she did. She led a staff and a meeting after school one day to showcase and to highlight what MCP is, what it has done for her, and things. Let's sit down and talk about it even more if you want to start planning. So having the teachers take that ownership and approach you and want to do things on their own is now becoming easier. You're seeing it more often now. No one wants to hear from a technology coach all the time. No one wants to hear from an instructional coach all the time. People want to start hearing from their colleagues that are doing it in the classroom. So those kind of impactful moments are some of the greatest ones.
And sometimes it just sometimes it is a person who believes in you, right? To say like, hey, go and present on this. Go, like you're doing this really cool thing, highlighting again their skill set and their strengths, and then saying, go and share that with the rest of your colleagues. Because I think sometimes as educators, we forget that we're actually skillful and that we have a lot of strengths, right? Because we're so stuck in like, oh, I have 120 kids, or I have to create this curriculum or whatever. And so sometimes we forget how great we are. And so to have an instructional coach, a technology person coming in and just being like, hey, do this. As a thought partner, you're really good at this. Go talk about this. Go share this with others. And you're like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yes.
So, oh my gosh. Oh, Meredith, I'm excited. This is so cool that she's doing really well.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay. And how often do y'all have, what would you call this? Like professional development with teachers?
I try to meet with teachers at least once a month. And as a technology coach, it may be something to do with MCP. It may be something to do with a new software that the district has provided. But we try to meet, and every school and every coach is different. So not every school meets with, everyone does it their own way of how they can get into the grade levels, how they can meet with their staff. It may be a meeting after school once a month or once a quarter. So everything is very different across the entire district. Everyone kind of does it their way and sees what is the need of the school? What is the admin's vision? And that's where we go in and meet that. Right now, I know that at Rocky Ridge Elementary and at Berry Middle School in Hoover, we are going through a leadership cohort. So we meet once a month with different people from the school, and Matthew will come in and walk the team through what does the rubric look like? What does the steps look like? What does feedback look like? What is the vision? Well, first of all, what is the vision of the school? What do you have? What do you want your outcome to be? What's important? What's not important? So in those vision and those leadership teams are made up of different people at each school. Some may be instructional coaches. There's going to be classroom teachers. There might be a technology coach, of course, the admins. So it's been really nice here at Rocky Ridge going through a leadership cohort with different people, getting their different visions and ideas, because there's a lot of teachers that have already been through the program. And I'm very, very excited to see in the future how many other teachers can get on this, because how nice would it be to start this in a kindergarten? Next year, they're doing it in first grade. And just imagine if they had a teacher each year through the whole way through their elementary school. What kind of impact? I would love to, see a study. How much growth did we have? Where did what was the weaknesses? What was the strengths? But how did these kiddos grow from year to year using this model? So that is definitely a huge goal in the future.
Yeah. And again, like you said, with the leadership cohort, right? It's different folks coming in together, and it's an alignment across the board, right? Like, hey, we got to be on the same page. And I think, like you said in the beginning too, with the 9 technology coaches that y'all have, right? You all had the same end goal. You all had the same view of what you want teaching and learning to look like for students and for educators. And so I really love that you all are continuing to work on expanding and having other roles and positions coming in to have a better understanding of the model. That's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And so I think, as a technology coach, do you do any observations? I know definitely not. I mean, I don't know. Let me not assume. Do you have like evaluations, observations? I know that you said that you yourself meet with teachers once a month, right? How does that look for when you're going into classrooms?
So if I go into a classroom and, this model is taking place and a teacher is going through a lesson, number one, I would never give any kind of, I would never go in with a teacher think that I am judging them or grading them on something. So if I do go in and this happens and I do have the opportunity to witness MCP model going on, a lesson going on, I mean, I'm going to praise that teacher, find some really good things that's going on in that classroom, talking to the kids. What are the kids learning? What do they like? What do they don't like? Then I would follow up with the teacher and say, this is amazing. You were doing some really phenomenal things. And this is what little Johnny said, and the way that they are loving it and learning from it. Have you thought about? So I would never say anything, I wouldn't do this. This is probably not a good idea, but give them a have you thought about? What if you go in and spark even more creativity? It's going to get that teacher thinking, man, I didn't think about that, but could I do this? So let them ask me the questions after that.
Jamie, I have to ask, have you always been this type of technology coach? Because I'm listening to you and I'm reflecting on my own experiences as a technology coach and as like someone who just works with educators in the beginning. And I'm like, I made a lot of mistakes.
I make mistakes every day of my life. I mean, just as of yesterday, I've been in this role as a technology coach for about 11 years. And just a PD I did yesterday with some teachers. Oh my gosh, I wish I could totally go back and now redo every PD on this same software that I've done 100 times already, because I just learned so much from a group of teachers that I have learned that I have failed the past 20 meetings that I've had, and now I want to do better. So, every day is someone I want to be the person tomorrow. I can't go back and be someone from yesterday or even today. I just need to I want to achieve something greater tomorrow. And so I think that's just the mindset that I try to have every day. And when I look at myself and go, well, that was the worst PD I've ever done. I ask myself, okay, what are you going to do about it now? Like, how are you going to change that up?
I love that. I mean, I feel like that's emotional intelligence, right? Of just being able to be vulnerable enough to say like, oh, that wasn't good, but also just being open to reflecting and admitting that something wasn't good. I think for me, I'm still cringing at some of the things I've said. And I'm like, wow, nobody should ever trust like a late 20-year-old to be an instructional coach because
Well, you know what? And I laugh because our team, when we make mistakes, we just go and tell it ourselves. We cannot get back to our desk quick enough to send a chat to the entire team and go, well, let me just tell you what kind of tech coach I am today.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, I go back and forth. I'm like, man, if I were an instructional coach now, I would just be 100 times better than what I was before. So I like this reminder too of, using the question stem of have you thought about, right? Instead of saying, do this instead. So I love this concept of you saying like, give them something to think about, right? Not necessarily making them feel bad or pressuring them to change something, but just leave with something that they can think about. That's so great.
Absolutely. And if you know those teachers and if you've built those relationships, you've seen their teaching style, you kind of know what is how they thrive. So taking those things that you know about that teacher and just reminding them of their really strong assets that they have as a person and as a teacher is a really great way to spark conversation.
And again, right, the relationship piece.
Yes.
Because without a relationship, you wouldn't really know what and how your teachers are moving in this world. So with relationships, you can at least say like, oh, I know not to say it this way with so-and-so because they're not going to take that, you know,
Yeah.
or like, oh, this person would prefer that I say it in an email rather than like, you know, verbally. And so then they have time to process the information that's being shared. So again, relationship is so, so, so important. And we kind of want to do that, right? Like top down, like when they see their instructional coaches or technology coaches doing this thing of establishing relationships with them, then hopefully that trickles down in their classrooms, right? That's the hope. Is the modeling part, is this creating a brave space for folks to be. And so that's the hope for that, right? I love the modeling piece of it. So Jamie, for instructional coaches or technology coaches who are still in the curious stage of implementing this model, what is a helpful piece of advice to get them started, or something that you did that you say like, don't do?
If they're in the curious stage, and I have some in the curious stage, I really encourage those teachers to visit other teachers' classrooms. Let's get someone to cover your class so you can go see a teacher that is implementing it. Dabble your toes in the water just a little bit to see if you're interested. Go ask questions, visit those classrooms. And then if you like it, let's go through the program. Let me help you get signed up. And so those are the things that you can't tell someone. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. All right. So you got to let them take their own way and see if it's really for them. And that's what I'm here to encourage them to do. And I can tell you the great things all day long, but until you're ready, I can't make you ready.
Oh, that's so real. That is so real. And that idiom that you shared, you know, it took me a really long time to understand that idiom, but I get it now. So I'm like, growth, baby, we got this. And so, Jamie, would you also consider, or at least let instructional coaches and technology coaches know that, hey, it's really important to go through the course? Or is there something that, because you know, the course is time consuming, let's just be honest, right? Like a lot of people say, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. How would you tell an instructional coach that's like, or a technology coach that is hesitant to go through the course?
So there is a free version that you can go through, and it is not the difference between the course, the full course, and then the free version online is you don't get that mentor or that mentee that gives you some real feedback. So when you do have questions, or you're really curious about, does blended learning truly have to be, you know, a lot of technology? No. Does it all have to be all handwriting? No. You can make it whatever you want. But the course will actually teach you exactly the steps and the importance of each step. And I think that that is what is missing from going through the full course and getting that feedback. Oh, I hear teachers say, oh, I wasn't really doing the full thing. I was only doing a little bit of it. Well, that's totally fine with me. But what are your students? How are your students benefiting from this? Did you really see a great impact in mastery achievement of them understanding and knowing those standards without going through A, B, and C, or are you just picking up a little bit? Now, you can start out by not implementing the whole thing, but you've got to know the correct way to implement what you are going to do. And that is what the course teaches you, is really what is important and what is impactful and how to achieve what you're wanting to do. So no, you don't have to do the whole thing, but what parts you are doing, do it right. And that is where you're going to see the student mastery build.
Yeah, I mean, again, the highlight that you said in the beginning, right? The interactions, the people the in-person interactions, or even just like virtual interactions, or just having a thought partner, with the course being able to provide feedback for you from teachers and school leaders who are mentoring for modern classrooms, right? So thank you for just highlighting that fact, and also just saying like, hey, you can do bits and pieces and that's fine. Really figuring out a way to make this work efficiently, because I think sometimes, right, when you go through the free course and you're doing this by yourself, you're not doing it efficiently, you're not doing it effectively. It's like you're creating more really work for yourself. And so having thought partners help create a sustainable way of implementing the model, I would say. And, just also a reminder that like the correct way, there are numerous ways to correctly implement the model. And there are also multiple ways to incorrectly implement the model. So that is such a nice reminder too, of like, hey, let's have thought partners. Let's talk to each other. And have someone who can provide feedback and answer all of those questions for you. So thank you for sharing that. So I know, Jamie, you had said that one of your goals that you want for Hoover City is to be able to have a teacher in every grade level to see the impact of this model, right? Is there any other goals? Are there any other goals that you want to share with us that you hope for in the future that's like keeping you excited about, showing up?
Absolutely. So I think my goal every day to come to work is, and it fits great in with the Modern Classrooms project, is to truly see a kid go home proud of what they learned that day. Truly get to see teachers touch every child in that classroom. This program multiplies the teacher. It doesn't separate your high achievers from someone who may not achieve as quickly. It multiplies that teacher to touch every student in that classroom. And so if I can see students go home that have learned something every day using this model and go home happy and knowing that they do not feel like a failure, and they can come back tomorrow not scared to redo something, not scared to practice that skill one more time in a different way, that is what would make my heart most happy.
My heart melted. Jamie, wow, that's really good. I really love that concept of kids coming home being proud of what they learned, as opposed to being afraid or feeling not competent, right? Because they can't understand something. So I'm going to add that for my future goals as well. Honestly, I'm going to take that.
Well, I have a child who had a learning disability, and if she had just had a teacher implementing this program, I can just see a world of difference, not only with her behavior in class as an elementary student, but just being proud that she wasn't different, that it didn't take her 2 or 3 different times to read the same passage. Maybe she read the same passage, but just on an easier level, and no one even knew about it, or did just a slightly different activity and met with that teacher. There's just so many great things that, gosh, if I could just go back and be that teacher myself, if I could go back in the classroom, and if I had spent when I was in 4th grade for 12 years, gosh, what if I had just done this, this, and this? But I can't go back and undo anything. But what I can do is share my love and knowledge with other teachers to help these students succeed that's in our buildings today.
Man, I knew you were cool, Jamie. This solidified all of it, because I definitely have the same feeling. I implemented the model my 10th year of teaching. And I remember just sitting in grief, right? Like grieving about how I could have been doing this way, and I didn't. So I had to grieve at the fact that I just didn't do that. And also understanding that like, no, I can make this 10th year like the best year ever with my students, with the knowledge that I have now because of this model. So, and I'm also really pressed to be back in the classroom, Jamie, because I'm like, I want to implement all of this. I want to create this space again for students to feel proud, to feel confident, to feel joy in learning once again, because I think, I've just been reflecting on the fact that I was really good at school when I was young, but I couldn't tell you what I learned, Jamie. So, but hey, I made straight A's. I was a teacher's pet. Like, I knew how to do school. I knew how to do what I needed to do to pass and survive and to excel. But if you were to have a deeper conversation with me and say like, hey, TR, what did you learn? I'd be like, I don't know, but I got an A. And I don't want that for anyone. Like, yeah, cool. You know, I had a high GPA, but essentially I wish I would have paid attention more in class. Like, I wish I really did understand and grasp the things that I was learning in school. Because I feel like now I'm just backtracking as an adult to be like, oh man, I remember learning about this, but I just didn't know, or I didn't remember. And I think now this is such a great, because, you know, I've been, I don't want to say gatekeeping the TikTok video that you and I created, but I feel like now it's such a great way. I feel like this is a time that it surfaces into our social media.
Yes, please.
Perfect timing.
Yes. So you need to bring that TikTok back out, because everyone needs to know that educators have a little fun, add a little spice in our day. So that just makes us happy at work.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised because I get nervous about asking people to be on TikToks with me. And when I'd asked you, you were like, yes, let me go find a room where we can do this. And I was so ecstatic. I was like, oh my gosh, really, really? And then I just froze because I was like, I don't even know what to do.
Well, then get ready for your next one when you come next time.
Yes. I'll be prepared this time, because I didn't think you would actually say yes, and you did. So I'm going to publish that video of me and you along with this podcast. So Jamie, how can our listeners connect with you if they have any questions?
Absolutely. You can always email me, and I can give you my work email. It's jnutter, Nutter, at Hoover, HOOVER.K12.AL.US. You can also find me on Twitter, Jamie Nutter, and on Instagram.
Yes, love that. Okay, I got to add you on Instagram as well, Jamie, so I can tag you. Listeners will have that on the show notes, so you can just click on it. You don't have to write anything down. So with that being said, Jamie, it's so lovely. This is so lovely having conversations with you and you being able to share your experience and expertise with us. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy, and thank you for your knowledge. Listeners, remember, you can always email us at podcast@modernclassrooms.org, and you can find the show notes for this episode at podcast.modernclassrooms.org. We'll have this episode's video uploaded on Modern Classroom's YouTube channel and transcript uploaded by Friday, so be sure to check back to access those. Also, we are asking our listeners to leave a review if this podcast has been helpful in supporting you to create a human-centered learning environment through a blended, self-paced, mastery-based model. It does help other folks find it. Thank you all for listening. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday.
Thank you so much for listening. You can find links to topics and tools we discussed in our show notes for this episode. And remember, you can learn more about our work at www.modernclassrooms.org, and you can learn the essentials of our model through our free course at learn.modernclassrooms.org. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at modernclassproj, that's Proj. We are so appreciative of all you do for students and schools. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday with another episode of the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.